Okay, I don't think it ended the stream, so we should be fine. Okay, so I made a JSON API in honor of Black History Month, and I'm just going to show you what I had. The API is called, so the repository is called Black History Month API, right? And what this does basically, let me open the API so I can show you what it does really. So it's a list of, I have 110 people currently, and I hope to add some more. So it's a list of 110 people with their names, the description of what they did, the date of birth, when they died, if they died, and whether they're alive still. It has their age, it has what they're known for, and it has the image. And all this information is available on Wikipedia, which is basically what I used. Now you'll notice that I have the first idea is 101. That's because these are kind of, how do I say? I wanted them to appear first, really. So I had them as one of the last people that I added. I don't know whether that makes sense. But basically, if you scroll up to 110, you'll notice that we are now going to start with ID of 1, which is basically Hank Aaron all the way to ID 100 of Malcolm X. ID 100 of Malcolm X. Now, I caught this typo that I made where I had a double L, but I already corrected it in my repository. But it takes quite a bit more of work in order to change this into in the actual API, which I have hosted on Heroku. And I'm going to do that probably after the stream. I don't want to do it now because it may take a while. Okay, so this is the API that we're going to be using. And remember, I was canvassing my React app where in the beginning of the stream, where I was saying, what command did I run? npx create React app called Black History. So once this has finished running, I just want to cd into Black History and then open Visual Studio Code. Now, another thing that I want to show you is the actual application that I built, because I already built the application. And let me close this. Don't need this. Where is the application? So this is the application. Okay. What did I want to show you? Okay, this is the live link that I wanted to show you. So this is the actual repository. If you want the full source code for the application, once we are done with this, I'm not really going to change this because this is currently what I've deployed to Netlify, but this is basically the application that we have. So we have some kind of logo right there. We have a menu toggle that we're going to create using state values, the use state hook in React. And then we have a simple title, purpose of the API. We have the people, which is now where we fetch our data, and then we just get the images and their names and then just style it out like this for the home page. Now this is how I wanted the home page to look, and I think it looks pretty nice, very presentable and decent. And then at the bottom we have a simple footer, which is basically our navbar that we had at the top. It's basically our navbar without the home button. So that's basically what we have as our footer. And it scrolls, we're using React Router DOM to manage our routing. So we have, if I click this, it will go to the web app, and you'll notice that we have some kind of loading animation. We have some kind of loading animation once this loads in. I don't know whether you saw it, but it's just a simple loading animation, just to signal to the users that indeed we are fetching some data, application is working, and it's not that your machine has stopped working. So we were on web app right there, and the web app also has some loading animation because we are fetching data once again from our API, and we had displayed quite a bit more of the information than on the home page. So we basically have our image, we have the name of the person, we have some simple underline, which I think looks, it just appeals to me, that's why I have it. And then we have the description, and then we have the date of birth, we have the died or the died slash status, because the reason why I have this status is if I search for alive, you'll find that we have others who are alive. So I didn't want to make an assumption, otherwise this would blow back quite a bit on me. Okay, so once you have that, we have the age, which we're displaying here, and then we are known for we have a known for flag, which is basically what did they do that makes them prominent. and we have everything all the way, you know, so some very nice people. And creating this API was quite, it was quite a good experience for me because, you know, I was reading along as I was, you know, reading about everyone here. Okay, next we have the purpose of the API, which is basically this, nothing much. And then we have the view API, which will take us to our API. And I'm going to leave this open because I need to grab this link. And then we have the documentation, which is our documentation page, which once again doesn't have anything much in it. It just has what is this API, why this API, contributing this to this API, which I haven't really made. I will make a contributing.md file to the repository, to this repository, so that in case you want to, you know, contribute to this API, then you can follow the instructions and then we can, you know, continue. And then where is it? Cloning and running the API, of course, and you know, everything else. So that's basically it for our application. It's not really a big thing, but I think you will learn quite a lot out of this because we're going to create, you can see that I don't have the usual menu. I wanted to keep away from that usual menu because I really think this looks nice actually. So we have a menu toggle which we're going to create using React hooks, the use state hook. Then we're going to also set up another state value for our loading animation right there. And then we are going to set up what is it, our useEffect hook to fetch our data, and we're going to be using the fetch API today just because I don't feel like going into Axios. And that's basically it. So I'm going to open this up to the side, and then I'm going to close my terminal right there. And then I'm going to open my integrated terminal in Visual Studio Code using control and tilde, and I'm going to say npm start, which will run this boilerplate that we have from create React app. Oh, I've remembered something. I wanted to use Tailwind CSS. Now, the usual way that I usually use Tailwind when building out such applications is I install it using npm, but I don't really feel like waiting for all those commands to run. So I'm going to use the CDN instead, and I'm going to get into cdnjs.com, and I'm going to search for Tailwind CSS right there, and I'm going to copy the link tag, and I'm going to go inside my public folder, and inside index.html, let me place this full screen and close this. I'm just going to copy the link tag. I'm going to copy it right there, which is the link to Tailwind CSS, and then I'm going to remove these comments. Actually, I'm also going to remove the manifest JSON file because we don't really need it. So all the way to here, I'm going to delete this, and then I'm going to remove this as well, and then I'm going to change this ID to react-root. You don't have to do this really, but I like having it as react-root. And then for the title for this, I'm just going to say Black History Month API, or rather, let me say React app, and then copy this. Oops, copy this, and then change the description here, paste this in, and then the theme color is just going to remain black because this is basically the main color that we have in our website, basically our web application actually. And then I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to delete this logo and the manifest JSON file and the favicon as well. So delete all of this. Okay, and then now this should be open. Target container is not a DOM element. That's because I changed the ID from root to React root. So I need to change it right here as well and say React-root. And then once I save this, then we should have the default page right there. So this means our application is working correctly, but I want to break it yet again. I want to break it because I want to delete this setup test, report with vitals, the logo, and the app test.js and the app CSS. So delete all of this and break our application. And then we're going to remove this as well because we've deleted it, and then remove the import as well. And then save this, but our application is still broken because in app.js we are importing files that don't exist. So remove this from the top. And then I want to use an arrow function instead. So I'm going to change this into const app equals to this, and then set my arrow function. And obviously I don't want to return all of this, so I'm going to return a fragment first of all, a React fragment, and then I'm going to return an H1 that says Black History Month, like that, and now it should render on the screen as Black History Month. There you go. So our initial setup is actually ready. Now what I need to do is figure out how many components I want, and then actually I need to install my React Router DOM first. We need to install the dependencies first, right? So I'm going to add a terminal here, and I'm going to say npm install react-router-dom, and then I also want to install React icons, so react-icons-save, because we're going to use an icon from Font Awesome for our hamburger menu. And then what else do we need? Yeah, I think it's those two. If there's anything that I've left out, then I'm just going to install it as we progress into the application. It's not really much of a big deal. So once I have this, then this means our application is working in app.js, but I don't want to return this from app.js. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a components folder inside my source folder. I'm going to create a new folder called components like that. And then inside components, I'm going to create a header.js file, which is basically going to be our navigation. So it's going to house everything from the logo into our hamburger menu. So I'm going to say RAFCE, which will create a React arrow function component and export it as default. And if you're wondering how that is possible, then you can go into your extensions right there and search for ES7 React Redux GraphQL and React Native snippets. So this is the name of the extension. And using this extension, that's how I'm able to do RAFCE to generate a React arrow function component and export it as default. I want to place this back to the side so that I can see what I'm editing as it's happening. Okay, so inside here, I'm going to return a fragment as well, and then I'm going to return a header tag like that. And remember, we are using tailwindcss for styling. So everything is going to be technically inline, but it's not technically inline. What I mean is we're just going to be adding some class names inside here and then giving it some Tailwind class names inside here instead of going into an actual CSS file. And I don't really think we need this. We do need this font because that's the default font that we're going to be using, but we don't need this. So this is basically everything that we're going to need for our CSS file. And then let me remove this. So inside this header, I want to return the first div, and this div will have an h2 that says Black History, which is basically what we have in our application right there. So we're going to be returning this, and then let me close this, and let me close this as well. Okay, so we're going to be getting this Black History, and then we're going to have a nav bar inside here with another list. How many are they? How many list items do I have inside here? I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, or 6 rather. So 6 of them. Okay, now to navigate between these pages, we'll need to use something from React Router DOM called navlink or link. You can use link or navlink, but for this case I want to use navlink. Okay, so what I need to do is, as you can see, I was checking whether this has finished installing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import navlink, and remember it's a named import, so it needs to be inside curly brackets. So I'm going to say import navlink from react-router-dom, and then inside these list items I'm going to have navlink. It's a component from React Router DOM, and it takes in a toprop, and I want this toprop first of all because this is basically going to the home page, and we know our home page is going to be the /, right? And then once it goes to the /, then I want to just render the text as home. Now our application is going to break, I think so, or it should break rather, let me say that, but it doesn't break because this is technically not being rendered anywhere on the screen. So I need to render this in my app.js because this is going to be the entry point for my routing. And I can do that by first importing this header.js at the top. So I'm going to say import header from, it's coming from components slash header like that. And the reason why I can give it any name inside here is because I have a default export at the bottom. And then I want to render it in place of this h1, so I'm going to remove this h1 and instead render my header component like that. And now our application should break. It should break. Reload. And it does break. There you go. It does break. And the reason why it breaks is because we are trying to use navlink before we have set up our initial routing. So it's very easy to fix that. We can just say let me go above this, and in app.js I'm going to say import, and we're going to importing a few things from React Router DOM. And the first thing that I want to import is browser router. So browser router, and I'm going to import it as router, so give it an alias. And then I want to import the route component, and then I want to import the switch component, and all of this will be coming from React Router DOM. Now, in order to fix this error, all we need to do is just wrap our application inside the router tags, so router like that. So basically, we are wrapping our entire application inside this browser router so that our nav link will work. So once I save this, and you see, there we go. So we have our navigation working, not really our navigation, but we have our application working, so that if I go to homepage, nothing will happen because I'm already on the homepage. Now I want to create another route which is going to be for my web app, where once I navigate to this, then instead of just having the images and the names right there, then I can have some more information about them. As you can see, we now have the image, we now have the name and everything else. So I want to create another route inside app.js, and inside app.js I'm going to just say render a route component like that. And inside this route component, it takes in a path prop, and this path prop is going to be basically what you want to be shown in the address bar when this route is navigated to. So if you wanted this to go to Uncle Sam, then obviously you could have it go to Uncle Sam. What matters basically is what components do you want to render inside this route. And for the first component that I want to render is going to be actually I haven't created it. Let me just create a dummy component. Let me create a showcase like that. Oops. A showcase like that. So this is going to be my component, and if I try to save this, our application is going to break once again, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to create this showcase component, and I'm just going to import it right away like this, showcase. And then let me create the component inside the components folder. So I'm going to call this file showcase.js like that, and then say rafce once again, render an h1 that says showcase like that, and it should now render on the screen. But it doesn't because I haven't saved app.js, so let me save that, and it should render showcase on the screen. Reload. Oops. Okay, the reason why it doesn't render showcase is because the path, we are currently on the / path. But if I go inside my navigation and navigate to this path that we have as Uncle Sam, notice that if I say Uncle-Sam, then we should have showcase right there. And if I click on home, then the showcase doesn't appear anymore because this doesn't technically have the routing for the home page. Now, I don't want this to say Uncle Sam, really. I want it to say WebApp because that's basically what we're building. And then I want to create the route for my home page, which is basically the /. So I'm going to do something similar to this. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it right there, and then remove this. And then I want to render the showcase as well in my... wait a minute. I want to render the showcase for now. Okay, for now this is basically fine, so let me save this, and we should now see showcase on the screen because we are on the / path, which is the path that we're currently on in our navbar. Now I want to show you something else, an issue that with the React Router DOM that we're going to fix in a bit. If I try to navigate to /webapp, you'll notice that we have showcase and then we have showcase once again. So the reason why this happens is because technically, if I go on a bigger screen, technically we are on the / route, as you can see, and then we are also on the /webapp route. So what happens is that this path is technically correct with currently what we have, and this part is also correct with what you have. So in order to fix this, then we need to add another prop inside our forward slash inside our homepage called exact. And once I save this, then one showcase should disappear, and that means it's working correctly. Now let's go ahead and I know I haven't used the switch, and that's purposeful. I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to show you where it comes in, why we use it actually. And actually, let me place a comment here and say use switch, capital S, oops, capital S. And then I want to place another comment here saying fix scroll to top, scroll to top. And I'm going to explain why I have this as well. And then I'm going to say another comment, say fix Netlify routing. Now these two are issues that I had for quite a while, but I managed to fix them. So I want to share them how I fixed them. But I don't want to show you the solution before I show you the problem, so that you understand why we actually need them. So I'm going to save this, and this should still work like that. Now let me go back into my header, and we're going to continue creating our routing. And obviously the second route that we have is nav link, and this one goes to /web app that we've just created, right? And the text for this is going to say web app. And the reason why I chose routing, the reason I chose nav link is because nav link takes in an active class name prop, and this active class name is basically what kind of styles do you want the current the navigated route to have. I don't know whether that makes sense, but I'm going to show you basically what this is in a moment. So let me remove this, and we are going to create another route. Actually, this is not going to be a nav link because it's an external link. This one goes to view API, and I need to grab this link. Actually, let me just copy this before I forget. Where should I place it? I just want it to hang somewhere. So this third one, I'm going to say this third one should be an href that goes to actually this link, and then this should say view API, right? And then this fourth one is going to be a nav link, and this one will go to documentation, and the text for this will say documentation as well, really, documentation, like that. And then what link am I missing? GitHub repo and purpose. Okay, so I need to have another href, because the reason why I'm using href instead of nav link is because these are going to external links. They are not links within our application. So this should go to my GitHub repo, and I don't have the link for this, so this is the link. Grab it, paste it inside there, and just say GitHub repo. Now you don't need to have these links technically, because you can have these links into the links for your actual API if you're going to commit it to GitHub. And the final link that we need is the purpose, which I want to have here, and I'm going to say nav link. This one should go to /purpose, like that. Once I save this, then we go back into our application, then we should have this. So basically this is our nav bar. Now I want to just try and navigate to each of these pages. This is the web app. You can see that we are in the web app technically. Let me go on a bigger screen so that you can see that it actually changes in the address bar. And if I go to documentation, then it should say documentation. GitHub repo will take me to an external repo. I don't have to click that. But if I go into purpose, then it should say purpose. Now what we need to do is create actual components for each of these routes, so that it actually renders something when we're on that route. If I click on web app, obviously it shows showcase, because that's currently what we have in our routing in app.js right there. Oh, sorry, right there. Okay, so let's make all of this routing first, the routing documentation to purpose and to, okay, it's only those two routings, so that we don't need to keep on going back and forth between these files. So I'm going to create, actually, let me just copy this because it's easier. Shift Alt and down will paste it down, and this should go into /documentation, and this should render the documentation component that we don't have yet. and then sorry, grab this once again and shift alt and down, and this should go to / purpose like that, and this should say purpose. And once I save this, then obviously our application breaks because we don't have these two components. As you can see, it says documentation is not defined and purpose is not defined. So to fix that, I'm just going to grab it and copy this down and change this into documentation, and then grab this, grab this and say purpose. Now I want the documentation and purpose to come from a different file called pages, which I haven't created. And the reason for that is because these are technically pages, you know, they're not components, they are pages. So let me save this, and then let me right away create a new folder inside my source folder called pages. And inside these pages, I'm going to create a new file called documentation.js, and then another new file called purpose.js, and I'm going to say arrayfce in purpose.js, return an h1 that says purpose like that. And then in documentation, I'm going to say arrayfce, and then render an h1 that says documentation. And there you go. Now once I save this, then this should now work. Oops, pages documentation, documentation. Is the spelling correct? Documentation cannot resolve in / pages. Wait. Is this route correct? Let me check this. / pages documentation. Yeah, this should be correct. Let's reload that. Okay, there you go. So that now if I try and go into documentation, then I should see documentation. And if I try to go into purpose, then I should see purpose. So our routing is working correctly. So now all you need to do is now just try and add the logic. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this, and this as well. And inside index.css, actually there's one more line that we need to add. We don't need this. There's one line that we need to add, and that's the background color, and the one that I want the background color to be black. So that's basically it, so that we have this. Oops, actually there are two lines that we need to add, and I need to set the color to white so that we can actually see what we are styling. So once you have that, that's basically it for our CSS file. Now I want to navigate back into my home page, and inside my home page now I want to go into header.js, and then I want to actually begin styling this out. So I'm going to go into header, and I'm going to say give this a class name of flex. Actually, you know what, I don't want to give it a class name of flex, because I want this to appear as it is, just like that, as it is in our application, as you can see, in terms of a column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this b, cut it out and place it inside a span like that, and then I'm going to style this span, give this span a class name of what was it, bg white, which would make it white like that, and then give it another class name of text black, so that we can now see it. And let's say padding on the x of 4, and then let's say rounded full, so that it's actually rounded dash full, so that we have that. So padding on the first too much, let's say padding 2, so that we have that, so it's almost circular. Now I want to go inside this h2 so that I can increase the size of this. So I'm going to go inside the h2, give this a class name of let's say text for XL, make it big enough, I suppose. Let's say 3 XL. Let me increase this to 3 so that it's more circular. I don't want this extra space, so that we have that. Okay. Let me go into the header and give this header a class name of padding on the x of 5, so that it moves away from the margin, just a bit. There you go, so that we have that. Okay, now I'm going to go inside this navbar, give this navbar a class name of margin top of 4, so that it pushes away just a bit from the logo, so that we have this. And then I've just remembered that I need to add some more padding on the top for this header. So let me say padding on the Y of 5, or let me say 10. Is 10 good enough? Let's say 5. So that we have padding on the 5 right there when the margin begins, and then we have padding on the bottom as well. Hey Cookie Beast, if you're still here, then you can run the command exclamation react app so that you can actually see what we are doing in case you're following along as well. Okay, let's see. What do I need to do? I want to add some bit of margin between these LIs. So I need to go inside these individual LIs. You know, this is such a big hassle. Let me go inside my index CSS and let me target the header. And then I want to target the navbar, and I want to target the UL and the LIs, and then just give them a default margin of 5 pixels on the top and 0 on the left and right, which should now separate them just a bit. Let me save that. Let me go back into my header.js, and then now we can begin to add the active class name that I was telling you about. So if I have here active class name, it's basically the styles that I want the navigated link to have if we are on that route, basically. So I'm going to give this an active class name of bg white, and right away once I save, because we are technically on the home page, once I save this, then this should have a background color of white, as you can see right there. And then let's say, let me have a text black, so that we can actually read what we have. And then let me have padding on the x of 2, just like that. Let me say padding on the y of 1. That's much better. And then I'm just going to grab all of this, copy this, paste this inside here, and then paste it inside the documentation, and then paste it inside the purpose right there, and save it. So now what you notice is that once I navigate to this, then it should have the active class name, which is basically this white background color. So look at that. And obviously you can see that there's an issue. If I go into documentation, look at that. If I go into purpose, really, okay, there you go. So if I go into purpose, then it also takes up the active class name. So now the issue that obviously you've noticed is that even though we are navigating away from the home page, then it still has the active class names that we want to remove it, basically. So we can remove that by adding a prop on the link that goes into the home page, and that prop is basically what we had in our app.js, which is the exact prop, which means only when we are navigating to the home page should it have the active class names, right? So I'm going to go inside my header, and inside where is it? Here it is. And I'm just going to add another prop here and call this exact. And once I save this, because we are now on the purpose page, then you notice that it goes away. If I go into the documentation, basically everything works fine right now. Okay, once we have this, then we are almost halfway through. Now, one thing that is remaining is our toggle for our menu. So let me go back into the home page, and then below the navbar, I want to add a button. And this button is going to have an icon from React Icons called FA bars, like that. Excuse me. And we need to import this icon at the top. So let me go back to the top and let me say import FA bars from React Icons. And remember, it's the font awesome library that we're looking for. So let me save this, and it should now appear somewhere. Where is it? Where are you? Okay, there you go. So this is basically our button. Now let me just increase the size of this because it's too small. Give this a class name of text4xl. Increase the size so that we have this. Now I want this to be positioned absolute, because I don't want it to have the normal flow of I don't want it to be inside the normal flow of the header. So I'm going to grab this button and place it inside a div. Place it inside a div like that, and then give this div a class name of absolute. absolute, if I can type it, which will take it out of the normal flow of our website, of our web page, as you can see. And then I want it positioned to the top by 5 and then to the right by 5, and it should go right there, looking very nice. Now these numbers are chosen quite specifically, and the reason why I have this top of 5 and right of 5, oops, is because inside my header I have a padding on the x of 5 and padding on the y of 5. And actually, because I have this, I can just say padding dash 5, like that. Is basically the same thing, which means it's on the top by 5 pixels and on the right by 5 pixels, so it maintains a semblance of uniformity. So once I have this, then we need to actually now toggle our navbar once we click on this, and we can do that using state values. Now, state values, we can access state values using a hook in React called useState. So we need to import it. So import useState from React, like that. And then we need to set up our state values. So I'm going to say const is open and set is open. Set this to use state. And by default, it's going to be false because I don't want the navbar to appear the first time that we load the web page. I want it to be false. Okay, so once I do this, once I save this, then I want to go into my button, and inside my button, right inside here, I'm going to add an on-click event. So I'm going to say on-click. I want to set my inline function inside here, and I want to set this function. Remember, this is the state value, and this is the function that controls how we access the state value. So I want to access this function in my button and toggle this to true, right? So I'm going to say right here, set is open, and set this to true, like that. Now this is not a good way to do it. So instead of saying this, set this to true, I'm going to set it to the opposite of is open. So what this basically means is, if is open is true, then set it to false, and if it is false, then set it to true. That's basically all that is happening inside here. Now once I save this, this doesn't work yet, but I want to show you something. If I open my terminal right there, and I go and access my components tab, where is it? My components right there. If you don't have this, then you need to have React Developer Tools extension installed on Chrome. If I go into my header right there, you can notice that the state of the header is currently true. And the reason why it's true is because, as you notice, I was clicking it because it's basically false by default. Now, if I click on this, then this should change to false, which means we can access our state value. So let's see. It changes to false now that I've clicked it, and if I click it again, it changes to true and true and false and true and false and so on and so forth. Now, now that we can see that this is actually working, then we need to set up what is called it's called what? It's called short circuit rendering, which means that we need to have, because basically what we're toggling is our navbar, so we need to place the navbar inside a condition that checks whether is open is true or false, and therefore renders the navbar or doesn't render the navbar. So I'm going to grab, actually, you know what, let me just set it first, and I'm going to set my curly brackets, and I'm going to say check for is open, right? And only when is open is true, that's when I want the navbar to be rendered. And you can do that by using the double ampersand, which means only when it is true, that's when I want something else to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this navbar from the beginning right here all the way to the end. I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to paste it inside here. Cancel. I'm going to paste it inside here. So once I save this, you'll notice that this should disappear. Our navbar now disappears. And if I click on this, then it appears, and if I click, it disappears, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. So our toggle is working, as you can see, working very nicely. So we need to move ahead. Now that we are done with our toggle, now we need to create our, what is it? Let me go back into the home page. We need to create our purpose of the API, which is not really that big of a deal, so I'm not going to do it, because I want to get into the actual logic of the application and the reason why people are going to watch this video, which is basically to fetch our data. So I'm going to create another component inside here and call this component people.js. Let me just call it people.js. And I'm going to say RAFCE once again. And then at the top right away, because I know that I'm going to be fetching my data and using state values, then I want to import the use state hook, and I want to import the use effect hook as well. Now, once I import the use state hook, then obviously you realize that the next thing that I want to do is set up my state values. So I'm going to say const, let me call this people and set people. Once again, this is just the state value that we have, and then this is the function that controls how we access this value. So this is going to be equal to use state, and by default it's going to be an empty array. The reason why it's going to be an empty array is because we are going to fetch our data and return a data arrays.json, which is then going to populate this empty array, and by populating this empty array, it's going to populate our state value. Okay, so how do we do this? Let me set up my use effect right away, and I'm going to say use effect, set up a callback function, and then set up an empty dependency array so that it only runs on the initial render. And inside here, I'm going to create my function to fetch data. So I'm going to say const fetch, let me say fetch people equals to an asynchronous function because I want to use async await, like that. Set my arrow function, and then obviously, because I usually forget to call this function, I want to call it right away, and I'm going to say fetch people, like that. Now inside here, I want to place a try catch block, so that we can try and fetch our data here, and in case it fails to fetch any kind of data, then I just want to console error the error. So I'm going to say console error the error that we get. So inside here, I'm going to say const response equals to await fetch, and we are going to be fetching the URL that I copied in my header. Do I still have it in my, nope, let me just grab it in my header. Remember, I pasted it somewhere. If you don't have it here, then no worries, you can just head over into the link for the API, which is basically this. And then where was I? Save this. I'm going to place backticks inside here and then paste in that link, just like that. Okay, and then once I do this, then I'm going to say const people equals to await res.json, which should now format whatever we get back in JSON format. So I'm going to save this, but it doesn't work yet. Let me just console log whatever you get back. So console log people, like that, and save that. And then I need to render this in order to check whether it's working. So I'm going to import it, and right below this, I'm going to say import people, like that. And then remember, I want this to appear only on the /. So I'm going to render it only on the route that goes into the /. So I'm going to render it below the showcase. And really, instead of the showcase, I want to render people, because I don't want to render the showcase, because the showcase really is an empty component. Okay, so that now, why is this grayed out? Why are you grayed out? I expected this to be grayed out instead. So let me save that. Let's see if this works. People spelling. This should be people as well. Showcase is not defined. I know it's not defined. Remove this. Okay, so let's check our console, and we should be able to see something in the console, and we see an array of 110 items. So that's working, because this is basically an array of 110 items, as I told you at the start. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is actually we need to find a way to access this array from here, from the console, and then print it out in our display. So we can do that easily by going into people.js, and then once we log our data, then I want to populate this empty array. Remember, it was an empty array. So I want to say set people. So basically, we're accessing the function that manages how we access our state value, and I'm going to say set people into this people, into this one. Please don't be confused. Sorry, into this one, not the console. Let me remove this. So we are saying set this people function into this people that we get back from res.json, which is basically the array of 110 items. So once I save that, and actually that should be fine. Now what we need to do is now access these people because it's not been populated by this res.json. Now just to show you that it actually works, I'm going to go inside this div and I'm going to render people just like that as it is, and I hope that this doesn't break really. And let's see. Okay, you know what, let me say people dot length. That's more manageable. People dot length, is it dot length? Come on, bro. Okay, there you go. So we get 110. So this is basically, it means that our state value at the top has been populated and it's actually working and it's accessible. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is set up our return, and I want to return obviously a fragment. I like fragments like that. And inside this fragment, I want to return an h2. Remember, let me place a comment here and say add loading animation, because I don't want to forget it. Okay, so inside this h2, I'm just going to say people like that, and it should render people on the screen. Very nice. Give this a class name of text center and text for Excel like that. I'm going to move a bit faster now because it's about to rain and I don't want the lights to go out. So I'm going to return a div at the bottom here with the class of, with the class of bg green dash 500 and height of 1 and width of, let's say, 32, right? If you're wondering how I can do this, it's because I'm using Emmet in JavaScript React in JSX. So let's see that. It should render something here. There you go. And then let me say mx of auto so that it goes into the center like that. Let me say my of 2 so that it pushes away from this as well. Looking nice, looking nice. Let me reduce this to 20. Okay. Okay, so now that we have our h2 and our div, basically the div is basically this. Then I want to go below the div and return a section, and inside this section I'm going to grab my data, which is basically our state value inside here, and I'm going to map over it, and then I'm going to pull out whatever data that I want to render and then display it on the screen. So inside this section I'm going to place some curly brackets, and then I'm going to say people, which is the name of our state value. So people.map, and then for every person I'm going to say, I'm going to say I want to get the ID, I want to get the name of the person, and then I want to get the image like that, and this is coming from person, right? And then we need to return an article inside here. Remember to always say return, otherwise your application is going to break. So return an article, and this article we have the key of ID, and remember the ID is basically the numbers that I gave them. So 100, so 1 up to 110, right? So they're unique for all of them. The key always needs to be unique. In case you're having trouble having a unique value, then there's something else you can pull out from map, which is called index. So you can say the key here could be index, if that's in case you don't have a unique value. But in my case, because I have the unique IDs, then I just need to pull out the ID, right? And then inside here, what do I need to do? I want to get the image, right? And the source for this is going to be the image, and the alt for this, in case the image fails to load, then I just want to display the name. And then below this I want to display an h for saying the name of the person. And once I save this, then it should be nice and well on the screen. And would you look at that? So that now we have the image, we have the name, and basically if we check our console, then we don't have any errors of conflicting IDs. Objects are not valid as React. Did I have an object inside here? I don't have an object. Come on, I don't have an object that is conflicting with anything. Okay, there you go. So we don't have any errors. Okay, now we just need to style this out to look a bit more presentable. Okay, so I'm going to go inside this section, give this section a class name of padding on the x of 5 so that it maintains the same padding that the header had. And then I'm going to say this should be a grid, and grid columns 1, grid calls 1, and a gap of 10 like that. And then I'm going to go inside the image, inside here, give this a class name of width full so that it takes up the entire width of the window, basically whatever window that you are viewing it on. And then once I do that, I want the name of the person to be positioned absolute inside the image. So I can do that easily by going inside this article, give this a class name of relative, like that. And then go inside this h4, give this a class name of absolute, which should now take it out of the normal flow. As you can see, you saw this image move up. So once I position this absolute, I can say I want it on the bottom of 0, bottom dash 0, which should now place it right there. Let me save that. As you can see, it places it just at the bottom of the image. And then I want it to the right of 0 as well, which should now place it right there. So let me save that. And would you look at that? Looking very nice. Let me style this up a bit further. Let me say text dash 2xl, text dash 2xl. Let me say uppercase, and then let me say bg black, and then let me have padding on the x of 2. And look at that. So that's basically it really for our small screen application. Now we just need to change how we render it on bigger screens, because we don't want this to happen, right? So I'm going to go inside this section, and I'm going to target the small screens first of all, which is basically 640 pixels in tailwindcss. Change this grid columns to 2, and you'll notice that once I scroll above 640 pixels, then the grid columns should be 2. So it's working correctly as you would expect. And then I'm going to target the medium screen and change the grid columns, so grid columns to be 3. And then I'm going to target the large screens, about 1024 pixels, change the grid columns to be 4. And then I'm going to target the extra large screens, which is about 1280 pixels, change the grid columns to 5. And I think that should be enough even for large screens. 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, let me reduce the grid gap at about large screens. I want to say gap to reduce to 5 because I had it at 10, so that we have this. Now obviously you'll notice something else that is protruding, and that is the fact that the images are not of the same height. If you look at our original application, they are all the same heights, that they have some kind of uniformity. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, beginning where we start to display as a grid of 2 columns, that's where the problem is going to start to appear, as you can see right there. So I'm going to go inside this right after this, and I'm going to say small, oops, what am I doing? I need to go inside the image. I'm going to go inside the image and say that for small screens, then for small screens and above, really, I want the height to be around, let's say 40. Let's see how 40 looks. Oops, too small. Let's say 96. Yep, 96 looks fine. As you can see now, all the images have a height 96 in Tailwind CSS. I don't know how much that is, but this looks to be around probably 200 pixels or something. I'm not really sure, 200, 300, 400, whatever it is. But you can see that it's now looking quite more manageable, as you can see, for all the images. And even on bigger screens, remember Tailwind CSS is built mobile first, so even on bigger screens, the images are going to have the same height. So it's looking nice. Okay, let me just add some spacing between this and this, and I'm going to say that for this section, let me have a margin top of 10. Push it away from this. There you go. Now for big screens, obviously I don't want this to have to take up the entire width of the device, so I'm going to add some extra padding for 2XL screens. So 2XL, I'm going to say padding on the X should be 40, which would push it inwards. 40 is too big. Let's say 32. Reduce it just a bit, and obviously I want to push in the header as well for 2XL screens. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to go into header.js at the top, and I'm going to say that for 2XL screens, this should be, and obviously this won't move, because remember, this doesn't move because it's positioned absolute, so it doesn't behave the same way as normal elements would. So in order to fix this, then we need to go into the button, And where we have right of 5, we need to say that for 2XL screens, then we need to have a right of 32, which is basically the same amount of padding that we have everywhere. So once I save this, then this should move inwards. And would you look at that, looking nice. And this is positioned relative, so it's looking amazing. It's looking amazing. I'm really happy for this application. Okay, so now that we are done with this, obviously the next thing that we need to do is create our footer. And yes, I did notice that Malcolm is spelled wrongly. I have corrected it in my repository. I just haven't committed it into the actual API. That's in case you thought I didn't see it. Okay, so let me create my footer. I'm going to go inside my components and create footer.js. And inside this footer, I'm just going to say array fce like that. Change this into a fragment, and return a footer HTML5 tag. Why isn't this loading? Okay, and then inside this footer, I'm just going to have a navbar, and basically I'm going to copy it from my header. So basically this entire navbar from the header, just copy it, except the state values. Don't copy the state values, and then just paste it inside here. Remember, there's no problem with the rendering a navbar on the footer, or at least I think there's no problem with the rendering a navbar on the footer. Okay, let's save that, and then let's go into app.js and render our footer. And remember, we need to import it, so import it below people, change this into footer. And then because I want it to appear on the /route, actually, you know what, I want the footer to appear on every page on the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to render it outside of every route, and I'm going to go below this and then render the footer like that. And I didn't think I explained that for the header. So the reason why the header isn't inside any route component is because I want it to appear on every page on the website, no matter the page that you're navigating to, whether it's an error page or whether it's a blank page. So let me save that. Navlink is not defined, and that's because I imported it. I just copy pasted it on the footer. Let me fix that. Import nav link from React router DOM. Save that, and now really reload it. It does that sometimes, don't worry about it. It does that, and now we should have our navigation. And obviously I don't want this to appear as it is, so I want it to actually, let me see how it looks on small screens. Let's see how it looks on small screens. On small screens, I want it to appear in terms of a column, so let me just fix that. Let me add some padding on the footer, give this a class name of padding on the x of 5, push it inwards just like that. And then I'm going to say that for medium screens, oops, let me go inside this, inside the UL actually, give this a class name and say that for medium screens, then I want this to display as flex. And notice what is going to happen once we reach about 768 pixels is that the navbar, the footer, sorry, is now going to display as what it is. What is this? As a row. That's the word. Now, as you can see, I'm having quite a bit of a hard time to navigate between this because of basically there's no margin or padding. So I can fix that easily by saying, excuse me, going to the footer and saying that padding on the Y should be 10, which will increase the padding on the Y axis of the footer, just like that. And then I need to go inside each of these links, each of these list items, sorry, each of these list items like that, and this one, and then finally this one. And then I'm going to say give this, each of these, a class name of margin x of 5. 5 is too big. 5 is too big. Let's say 2. Okay, 2 is much more manageable. Look at that. And then the next thing that I want to do is position this to the center, right? So I'm going to say right inside here, display flex, and then MD once again, items dash center, and then MD once again, and say justify center like that. And this should position it to the center once it's about 768 pixels. So this is working fine, as you can see. So we are basically done with our home page, because this is, all of this is going to be our home page. Now I wanted to add something more where I would link each of these people to have their own page, but that is quite a bit of work because I would need to go up and set up some other things inside my API. So I'm not going to do that in this video, or probably not actually, but that's okay. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is now work on our web app page. Now our web app page is going to be the page where we render all the information that we get from the API. So it's going to be something similar to what we did in our people.js, right? Excuse me. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy you know what, let me just first of all let me get oh, I didn't create the web app page. Let me create the web app page inside here and say web app.js like that. Oh, I remember it was showing showcase. Where is it? Here. It was showing the showcase. So instead of showing the showcase, let me say web app, which we need to import. Doesn't it allow me to import it by default? Okay. Let me copy this down and change this to web app, which is basically the file that we have just created in web app.js. And then I'm going to say RAFCE once again. And then once I do this, I'm going to return a fragment, obviously, as you've now noticed is the trend. And then I'm going to go into people.js, and then I'm going to copy my state values, so everything up to here, because it's going to be the same thing basically, right? The return is going to be a bit different because I'm going to be returning multiple things. So above this, I'm going to paste that in, and then remember we need to import our use state hook as well as our use effect hook at the top. And I'm going to say use state and use effect. Now you'll notice that I removed React. With the current version of React, we don't really need to import React from React like this. So you can remove it or you can have it. It's basically all part of your preference, but you know, let me just have it so that it doesn't confuse you if you are checking out, if you are looking through the code in another day. And this is basically the same thing really. So all we need to do is now just set up our return, and I'm going to set up my return, and I'm going to be returning an h2 that says really, okay, you know what, this is also going to be the same. So let me copy this, paste this in, and then now things are going to be different. So I'm going to turn a section where I'm going to map over my data once again. So I'm going to say people.map, and for every person, then I want to destructure a few more things, and all of these are going to be coming from person. And I'm going to say destructure the ID, the name, the description, the age. Actually, what is the structure? ID, name, description, date of birth, died, age, and known for. Let me see if that is correct. ID, name, description, date of birth, died, age, known for, and the image. I forgot the image. There you go. So that once we have this, now I can set up another return inside here, and I'm going to be returning an article. And this article once again is going to have the key of ID. And then I want to return a div inside here, which is going to have my image, which is coming from image. And the alt attribute is going to be the name of the person in case the image fails to load. And then once I have this, then I want to return another div with an h4 that says the name of the person. And then inside below this h4, then I want to have this div once again. So basically the div with the green underline, I'm going to paste it inside here, but it's going to have a smaller width. Let me say a width of 10, and it's going to be aligned to the left. So I'm going to remove the mx of auto. Oops, what did I do? Okay, there you go. And then this is, so below this div, I'm going to return a paragraph that says the description of the person. Is it desk? Okay. And then below the description, let me return another list with list items that are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 of them like that. And this, okay, now let me place this as a split screen. Oops. Place this as a split screen so that I don't have to keep scrolling up and down and up and down. So this is going to say DOB. This is going to say died. This is going to say age, and then this is going to say known for. So save this, close this, place it to the side, and then we should now be returning some kind of data. Why don't we see anything on the screen? Did I import it in app.js? Yes, I did import it in app.js. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You likely forgot to export a component. I forgot to export the component. No, I didn't. Um, what is happening? Why? WebApp from WebApp. It's coming from WebApp. Is it in pages? Yes, it is. So WebApp.js. What? Check the render method of app. Wait, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? WebApp. This is /WebApp, okay? And it renders the WebApp component, right? So it's rendering WebApp, and it's okay. Now let me disable this first of all, because I don't know where the problem is. So the problem is it in the import? Import WebApp, const WebApp equals to this, export default WebApp, okay? So in app.js, I should import, actually I don't need this showcase. I should import, is it basically the order of imports maybe? Import web app from pages, web app. Wait, what? Okay, there you go. So web app, and then remove this comment. And okay, there you go. There you go. Okay, so looking nice. So now we have the image, we have the name of the person, we have description. Oh, it's called description, not desk. What was I doing? It's called description. And this should say description like that. And this should reload. It should. Wait, what? Let me spell it. Description. Really? Really? Is this seriously? Man. Why is this happening? Today of all days. Why? Let's say here I am. It doesn't render on the screen. Why isn't it rendering on the screen? I don't understand that. Why isn't it rendering on the screen? Come on, man. Okay, you know what? I can work without this for a while. Let me add a flag here and say date of birth. There's a colon. Say here died / status. Let me say here age, how many years are you? And this is going to be known for, like that, so that you can have some bit of description. But it's not reloading. It's not reloading. Okay, then it's not me who was the mistake, probably. Okay, I think my server just crashed. I think this thing just crashed. So npm start once again. I think it just crashed. Okay, so as this continues working, then let me just add some default stylings to this, where I'm going to say, let me add first the description. Let me turn the description here and say description. Sean, like that. And I'm going to say, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I want to, wait, what? I'm even confused. Okay, so I want to go inside this section, give this section a class name of grid, and grid columns to be 1 by default with a grid gap of 10 as always, right? So that would mean that, let me check how I built this application. Loading. So the name, the description, the date of birth, diet status, non-for, and so on and so forth. Okay, okay, I see you. Okay, let me go inside the image, give this image once again a class name of width full so that it's always taking up the entire width of the display device. Save this. If this could only start faster. If this could only start faster. Okay, that's okay. Because I can't really style what I can't see. So I have to wait for this to start. Oh. Anyways, so how's your days going? As you can see, it's a blast. Yeah, it's a blast. What with everything not working today. Okay, so I have the web app. I added this underline, I added the name. So let me go inside this name, give this a class name of font bold so that it has the same font right there. And I'm going to say text XL. And then I'm going to go inside the description inside here, give this a class name of text justify so that it's justified, as you can see right there, looking nice. And then I'm going to say margin on the Y of, let's say, actually no, let me say margin on the top of 2 and margin on the bottom of 4. That, let me see what else I can do. I can grab this, place it inside a spanner. And the reason why I'm placing it inside a span, in case you're wondering, is because I want it to have a bolder font alongside whatever it is that I'm returning from the API. And then grab this, place this inside a span as well. And then this is okay. I can say here age, and then grab this, place it inside another span, and then finally grab this, place it inside another span, and all of these spans are going to have the same styling. So I'm going to grab the first one, the second, third, and fourth, or rather the last going to the first. Give this a class name of font bold, like that. And what is remaining? We can begin to scale it up just a bit. So at 640 pixels, then I have this displayed as flex. So this is finally loaded after 10,000 years. Okay, so we have people, and finally we have the description. Okay, let's take this back into a smaller screen. Now I'm going to go inside my section right here. Where's my section? Inside my section here, and I'm going to say padding on the X of 5 as always, margin on the top of 10, push it away from this tag right there. Okay, looking very nice. And I'm going to go inside the H4, give this H4 a class name of margin on the top of 2, push it away from whatever the image. And then I'm going to say give this 2XL, increase the size of this. Okay, looking very nice. We have text justify on the paragraph. We have our tags right there. So everything is cool. Everything is cool. We just need to scale it up. Right. So scaling it up is quite easy, or I think it should be quite easy, because at around 640 pixels, then I want this to display as the image and then the text on the left, on the right, sorry. So this is, remember I placed this inside a div. That was my reason for placing all of this inside a div, and then the image inside another div of its own, so that I can go inside the article here, give this a class name, and say that for small screens, then I want to display, should I display it as flex or as grid? Let me say grid, and then say grid columns 2. Let's see that. And would you look at that, looking very nice, but obviously we need to have some spacing between this, and you can do that by saying add the gap to 5, like that. Okay, 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 okay. So this is almost nice. We just need to scale it up further. Okay, okay. I remember the issue that I had with this. So what's going to happen is that on screens that are 1536 pixels and above, that's when I want this to appear as two people. Basically, I want one person with the image and the description, and then the other person with the image and description. So let me do that first because it's much easier the way I'm visualizing it. So I'm going to go inside this grid. So not inside the grid, but it's inside the grid. Yes, inside this section, sorry. And I'm going to say that for two XL screens, then I want the grid columns to be 2. And this should do something like this. Okay, would you look at that? But remember that we have a default padding on all of the section of 32. So I'm going to say 2XL should have a padding on the x-axis of 32. Push it inwards just like that. And would you look at that? And then I'm going to add some a more margin so that this pushes away, so that it's not so close to each other if the description is too long for each one of them. So I'm going to say that for 2XL screens, then I want the gap to be 20. Increase that margin. Okay. Okay, so let's begin to scale it down and see what we can do. Okay, so this is about 647, 68 pixels. So what I want to do is I want to target this image. Where's the image? Where's my image? Here's my image. And I'm going to say that for medium screens, then I want the width of the image to be 96, which should reduce its size significantly. But nothing happens because, okay, my computer started slowing down. It started slowing down. Okay, now obviously, as you can see, we have an issue with having a fixed width on the image because this happens. So what I'm going to do is for medium screens where the width is 96, then I'm going to add some more padding so that it moves inwards. And I'm going to do that inside my section right here. And I'm going to say for medium screens, I want the padding on the X to be, let's say 56, which should push it inwards. Would you look at that? That's too small. Let's say 72. Push it inwards even further. And then this should be fine. Let's see. Let's see what we have. Oops, that's not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. So medium screens, the padding here, let's say, actually, let me remove this first of all. Let me see how this looks. Actually, this looks fine. So what I need to do is target the large screens. Target the large screens, add padding on the X of 20. Let's say that. Let's say 32. Push it inwards for large screens. Okay, it's almost there. Let's say for extra large screens and say padding on the X of 40. Push it inwards. Let's see. Nope. Let's say 56. 56 should be fine. Yeah, 56 is fine. Is it? Yeah, 56 should be fine. So that now on bigger screens, then we should have this. And I've just remembered that I want this to have a font of bold. So let me do that. Let me go inside here and say font bold. Make this bold. And then I should go back. Oh, I didn't make this into a link. Why did I do that? I have it's just like a reflex. Every time I want to go back home, I usually click the logo of a website because I usually expect that to go back home. So I'm going to do that also. and then make this bold. So I'm going to go back into my people.js and add font bold here. If you can hear the noise from outside, please, I apologize. So we have this right there, and then I need to go into my header.js. So I'm going into my header.js and I'm going to grab this h2 and make this into a nav link component, nav link, like that. Paste this in, and obviously, as you can tell, this is going back to / because we expect to go back to the home page once we click on this, such that if I navigate to documentation, then I click this, it should take me back to the home page. Now, one thing that I need to do is add a loading animation for when we are fetching our data. So inside people.js, I'm going to set up another state value where I'm going to say const is loading and set is loading, and this will be equal to use state, and by default it's going to be true. Now remember, this once again is the function that controls how we access our state value, and the reason why it's true by default is I'm always assuming that we are always fetching our data. Then once we fetch our data and it's now accessible to us, then we want to change this boolean value into false. So once I save this, and just to show you what I mean, this state value is dependent on whatever we are rendering on the screen, right? So I'm going to grab all this section, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to place my curly brackets just so I can place some conditionals. I'm going to say that if is loading is true, so I'm going to use my ternary operator, and I'm going to say if is loading is true, then I want to say return an h1 that says loading ... And then once is loading, if is loading is false, so semicolon, then I want to paste this in. So basically what this means is if is loading is true, then return an h1 that says loading, and if it is false, then return our section, which is basically all of this that we're returning. So I'm going to save this. Actually, let me style this a bit more. Give this a class name of text, let's say 4xl, and font dash bold and text dash center and margin top of 20. Save this, and you'll notice that it will now say loading infinitely. And the reason why it says loading infinitely is because we have just set it to this without checking for the condition whether we have already fetched our data and then setting it back to false. But if I go inside here and change this to false, then this should disappear and we should get our data. Now I'm going to set this back to true, and obviously we only need to do one thing, where we're going to check where do we fetch our data, and you can tell that we fetch our data in this try catch block right here. So once we set our state value of set people into people, then I want to also say set is loading, set it to false. Now change it from true to false, and then I want to go into the catch block and say if there is an error, then set is loading back to true. So that's basically it. And once I save this and then reload this, did you see that? It says loading. It says loading, and then once it finishes loading, then it displays everything that we need. So I'm going to do this basically onto the web, the same thing really, onto our web app page. So where is it? I'm going to copy these state values, go into the web app, paste it here, and then say here set is loading to false, and then below this say set is loading to true, right? And then I'm going to grab this section all the way to here, and I'm going to say that if is loading is true, then return an h1 that says loading, and then if it is false, then return this section. And then I need to grab the stylings that I had for this, so all of this, and just paste it inside this h1. And then once I save this, then this should work the same way as it was working. And would you look at that? So we have our loading animation, which is looking very nice, and we have basically everything else. So the only thing that we're remaining with is what is it that we're remaining with? We have done the web app page, we haven't done the documentation and the purpose for the API. So for the purpose, basically, I'm just going to copy whatever it is that I had in my original application. So I'm going to go into purpose right there, and I'm just going to copy this. So what I'm going to do is, let me close all these tabs down. Close this, close this, close this. And I'm going to create a new component. Actually, you know what? Actually, it's okay. A new component called purpose.js, and I'm going to say arrayfce. Oops. Arrayfce, return a fragment as always. Return an h2, and this h2 says purpose of the API. Copy that, paste that in, and return a paragraph here that says all of this like that, and then render it into app.js, right? Render it in app.js. Where should I render it? This is purpose. Actually, it should be rendering by default. If I go into my application, reload this, because I already imported, didn't I? This is purpose rendering here. What is it? What is happening? What is happening? Wait. Where's my web app? My web app is here. Okay. Wait, what? This is coming from pages / purpose.js, right? Oh my god. You know what? The reason is because this is coming from components, not pages. And now it should render this. Okay, looking nice. Okay, so let's style this out. I want to grab all of this, place this inside a section, and then go inside this section, give this a class name of padding on the x of 5. And at this point, I'm realizing that probably I should have set a global variable for this because I'm using it so many times. Okay, go inside this h2, give this h2 a class name of text dash center, and then font dash bold, and then text dash for XL, and then go below this, give this a div with a class name of bg dash green dash 500, another class of height 1, another class of width dash 20, and another class of mx dash auto, like that we have that. And then let me add a margin top of 2 and a margin bottom of 4, separate it out a bit, go inside this paragraph, give this a class name of text center, like that. Okay. And then obviously I want to reduce the width of this paragraph on big screen, so I'm going to say that for large screens, then I want the width to be a half, which is basically 50% of the screen. Let's see how that would look, and it looks like this. And obviously I want it to appear on the center, so I'm going to say that for large screens, let the margin on the X be auto, which should now center it like that. Now I want this purpose of the API to appear on the home page, so above people, right there above people. I want it to appear above people. So what I'm going to do is going back into app.js, and then right inside this route that goes back to the /, I want to render the purpose first, like that, so that we have purpose of the API first, and then we have the people. So let me increase the margin on the bottom of this so that it's not so close to each other. Let me see purpose. Yeah, let me increase margin on the bottom of this, and I'm going to say margin bottom of 20, like that, so that we have that. It's a bit of spacing, it's much more relaxed. Okay. So what page are we remaining with? We have the GitHub repo documentation, or only the documentation page. Now this isn't really necessary. It isn't really necessary, because I don't want to copy all of this and style it out. It's just annoying now. Okay. So what do we need to do? Okay, now I've just remembered what I wanted to do. If you go into Netlify, if you've ever deployed your application on Netlify, you'll notice that sometimes once you have nested routing in React, then you'll notice that if you go inside an internal route such as /name / Thomas Sankara, for example, you'll notice that first of all, if you're building application for development, you would have a custom error page. And I've just remembered that I want to add a custom error page. You would have a custom error page, but technically what Netlify will do is Netlify doesn't show that error page by default unless you add some other configurations. So what Netlify does, it will show their own custom 404 page, which is very annoying because they will show the page even if the route exists. So in order to fix that, that's why I had this comment saying fix Netlify routing. We can fix that by creating a file inside our root. So make sure you are inside the root of your application, right? So make sure you're inside the root of your application and then create a new file called netlify.toml. So netlify.toml, and then inside this file have 2 square brackets, and then just call it redirects like that. And then this is going to be redirecting from /all, and then this is going to be going to /index.html, which is basically our single file application, our single page application, I should say. And then we are going to be going with a status of 200 so that it doesn't show a custom error for page. So these 4 lines basically fix that error, right? So let me save this. Okay, so once I save that, then that should work fine. And then now I can remove this. Now I want to show you why switch comes in. I want to create a 404 page, because you'll notice if I go into a page that doesn't exist on our application, then we just get the header and we get the footer, which is set up as default to always appear on whatever page that we're in. So in order to set up a custom error 404 page, we need to create another route component here. And the path for this will be a bit different, where it will go to an asterisk, what this basically means is that the path will always match, no matter whether you're on the home page, on the WebApp page, the path for the error page will always match. And I want to show you why that's annoying. So I'm going to say error like that, which is a component that we haven't created. So I'm going to copy this down and call this error. Let me structure it just a bit better. Let me grab this because the pages, move this down. Oops, move this down, place a comment here and say pages, and then grab this, place a comment here that says components. That's much better. That's much better. So error, not errors, error, like that. Now I'm going to create this inside the components folder. I'm going to create a new file called error.js, and I'm going to say RAFCE, and then return a fragment once again, return a section inside here, oops, a section, and then return an h1 that says error 404. That should be enough, really. Give this a class name of text4xl, and then give it a class of text center and font bold, and what else? That should be enough. Now you'll notice that because we are on a route that doesn't exist, then we get error 404, which is basically a good thing. And I've just remembered I should add probably a button here that says go back, just for a good user experience. So I'm going to add a nav link here, nav link, and you can see it has imported it for me automatically. So this should go to /home page. So I'm going to say back home like that. Give this a class name of bg green-500 and text-white, and padding on the x of 4 and padding on the y of 2, and then rounded -large. The reason why I'm moving fast for this is because this is a button that I've created so many times. So that we have back home right there, and then let me grab go inside this section and give this section a class name of text-center, which should move this to the center, right? And then I can remove this from here because we don't need it. And then let me add a margin on the top of 5 between these 2 elements. Push this down, or not, it doesn't work. it doesn't work. Okay, let me add here margin bottom of 5, which will push it away from this. There you go. So that once I click on go back home, then it should take me back to the home page. Would you look at that? Now, I don't know whether you saw it. The gotcha that we have here is that even though we are on the home page and we are not on the error page, if you scroll down to the bottom, you will find that we have the error 404, even though we know that we are not on an error page. So in order to fix this, that's where the switch component comes in. And what the switch component does is that it will always check for whatever route that matches the route that you're in currently, and then it will render the component that is what's the word, that is associated with that route. So I'm going to grab all my routes inside here. So I'm going to grab all of this, grab this, and then render a switch like that. And then just paste this in. And then once I save this, then you'll notice that the error for 4 page should no longer appear. Would you look at that? It no longer appears. But then if I go into a page that doesn't exist, then I expect to see an error for 4 page. So this is working correctly. It's working as you would expect, and it is amazing. Okay, so what is remaining now that we have switch here? So what's remaining is the fixed scroll to top. And I don't know whether let me just give you an example, because currently with the type of navigation that we have, we don't really see that error. We don't really see that error. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, oops, didn't mean that. What I'm going to do is inside my purpose here, inside my purpose component, what did I change? Okay, let me save this. Inside my purpose component, I'm going to return another paragraph. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you what happens. I'm going to return another paragraph that says Lauren 500. So 500 dummy words like that. And it should return something like this. And let me grab this styling that I had for this. Grab this styling and paste this in so that it goes into multiple pages. Did I save that? I didn't save that. Okay, it's running the code formatter. Okay, so that it has, seriously, I didn't have a closing tag. Okay. Should reload this, and so that we have this. Now you'll notice that if I try to go back home, watch out. Okay, this isn't really a good example. Let me see. Okay, I'm at the bottom. If I try to go into purpose, notice that I'm scrolled to the bottom by default and not at the top as you would expect, right? Because the default behavior for applications is if you navigate to a page, if you navigate to a new page, then obviously you want to be navigated to the top of the page instead of at the bottom, right? Why isn't my header appearing? Why isn't my header appearing? I deleted the header. Header should be here. Header. How many tries does it take me to type header? Okay, so in order to fix that type of functionality in React, because it no longer comes by default with React Router DOM, we are going to create a new component here and call this component scroll to top JS, like that. And inside here, I'm going to import a few things where I'm going to import my use state, of course, not use state really, but use effect. And then from React Router DOM, we are going to import another React hook, and we're going to call this hook use location. And this is coming from React Router DOM. Now, use location takes in a couple of things. If I say, let me, how do I explain this? It takes in a couple of things which you can access because it's technically a part of the routing. And one of those things that it takes in is the path name. So I'm going to create a variable here and say let path name equals to use location, like that, right? And let me see if I can find it in actually, let me render this first. It's coming from components. Call this scroll to top. and it should be the first thing. Always render it as the first thing before everything else. So scroll to top like that. Even render it before your header, so that it's always the first component that is rendered. So let me see if I can find, oops, I didn't mean to view the source. Where are you? If I check my, where's my profile at? Components tab. If I check my components tab, then I should be able to see scroll to top here, and it's using the use location hook, right? The use location hook, and you can see that the use location has a couple of things where it also has the path name right there. Would you look at that? And it says that the current path name that we are on is the /, meaning we are on the home page. If I change this and go into WebApp, then this should now say /WebApp. So what we want to do is we want to access this and check for whether we have changed the routes. And then if it's true that we have changed the routes, then we should scroll back to the top. That's the kind of logic that we basically want to have in our application right now. So I'm going to go back into scroll to top, and remember I imported use effect. So I'm going to say use effect, right? Set up my callback function. And then for this dependency array, we're going to pass in this path name, and I'm going to explain why. So path name like that. And inside here, we're going to just return null because this basically returns nothing. So I'm going to say inside this, I'm going to say window dot scroll to 0, 0, 0. Okay, so save this. Okay, so what happens is that this use effect, okay, let me explain like this. The reason why we usually have dependencies inside the use effect hook is so that we can execute some kind of functionality within the hook every time that the variable or the dependency changes. So the reason why we have path name here is because we are checking always for the for whatever path that we are on, and then every time that the path changes, then we are going to execute window.scroll to 0, 0. So basically every time that we change path, whether we're on the bottom or on the top, we are always going to scroll back to the top. And just to show you that this is working, I'm going to go inside index.css, and then I'm going to say what's the property, scroll behavior smooth, like that, so that you can see that we're actually scrolling to the top. Now, if I go back to the bottom right there and then I click on purpose, would you notice that we scroll back to the top even though we are on the bottom? But I don't want this kind of behavior, so I'm going to remove it, right? And then I'm going to go back into my home page, and I'm going to scroll to the bottom once again. And once I click on purpose, then look at that, we are scrolling back to the top by default. So that's a functionality that is really good to have on a website, because you don't want, especially if you have multiple links and multiple pages, then you always want a good type of navigation for your application. Otherwise, it's just a bad user experience. And obviously now I want to delete this dummy text. So it was inside purpose, and then just grab this all the way to here, just remove it, and there we go. So it's looking amazing. Now I'm not going to commit this to GitHub because I already have this on my GitHub, but I've just realized that I want this to have a bold font. So let me go inside my header, and inside my header I'm going to target this H2 and say font bold, font dash bold, like that, so that it has a bold font. So it's looking amazing. So I think that's basically going to be it. I'm going to upload this video to YouTube, and it's going to be quite a long video because I can see that I've been live for around 2 hours and 7 minutes. So it's going to be quite a long video. But if you're hanging out in the chat, thank you so much for joining me. I added Nightbot to my channel. That's why I have in the title, I have exclamation react dash app. And let me just show you what it does. Where's my chat? If I say exclamation, where's my exclamation mark? Exclamation react dash app and execute it, then it gives you whatever it is that we had for today. But I'm thinking of changing this command into project because it sounds more fitting. And then I also added some other commands. You can do exclamation mark YouTube, which will give you the link to my YouTube channel where I'm going to upload this video. And then I also have exclamation mark donate because which will give you, sorry, which will give you the link to my Streamlabs page because I currently don't have a sub button, right? But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for following. And I hope that you really learned something new. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And because this took me a week to build out, this API took me a week to build out, and I think it turned out really well, and I'm really proud of it. So if you're on YouTube, remember to leave a like and subscribe, and tell your friends to tell your friends about me. The shameless self plug. Okay, so I'll see you in the next stream, in the next video, and thank you guys for watching. Cookie Beast, welcome back.